Chapter 1, The First Crack. The sprawling event hall was buzzing with controlled chaos. Neon blue LED lights flickered halfway through being installed, and the hum of heavy machinery echoed off the steel beams of the unfinished setup. Technicians darted back and forth across the glossy floor, walkie-talkies crackling with fragmented instructions. This was the typical scene for Kaleidoscope Productions, a full-service technical support company specializing in corporate events, music tours, and everything in between. They were the unsung heroes behind the glamour, the kind who fixed disasters before they had a chance to bloom. At the heart of the mayhem stood Logan Hayes, the project manager. A wiry man with perpetually ruffled hair and a stare that could melt ice, Logan surveyed the setup with practiced intensity. Beside him, Carmen Diaz, the lighting specialist, squinted at her tablet. The two made for an odd pair. Logan, all tense energy, and Carmen, with her art school nonchalance and colorful tattoos snaking down her arms. Logan, chill. The world won't end if the spotlights don't align with your soul right now, Carmen teased, blowing a loose strand of hair out of her face. Logan grunted. Not the world, just our reputation. Meanwhile, in the far corner of the hall, Max Renner wrestled with a stubborn LED panel. The young tech whiz fresh out of college had a knack for solving problems, but an infuriating tendency to create new ones. He smacked the side of the panel, muttering, "Why do these things always glitch on me?" Across the room, their sound engineer, Alex Bradford, was testing the audio setup. Alex, a stoic figure with decades of experience, was the team's rock. He rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. Today, however, his calm demeanor was tinged with frustration as he fought against feedback issues from the speakers. "Logan," Alex's deep voice cut through the noise. "If this audio setup came from our usual supplier, we're getting ripped off." "Add it to the list," Logan replied without turning his head. His voice carried a razor edge of stress, which only thickened as his phone buzzed incessantly. The company's CEO, Evelyn Martin, wanted updates. She was in New York for a separate event, trusting Logan's team to handle this high-profile gig in Sao Paulo, trusting him not to screw up. But things were already unraveling. The centerpiece of the event, the massive LED backdrop, was missing half its components. A shipment delay, Logan had been told. He stared at the gaping black void where the panels should have been, his mind racing. Worse yet, the headliner for tonight's entertainment, an internationally renowned DJ, had just called in to warn of a delayed flight due to bad weather. As Carmen climbed a ladder to adjust an overhead light, she looked down at Logan and quipped, "So, what's the plan, fearless leader? You gonna MacGyver this one?" Before he could answer, the overhead PA system crackled to life, delivering a bone-chilling announcement. "Attention staff. All personnel must evacuate the building immediately due to a suspected gas leak." Gas leak? Logan's heart sank. They were on a brutal deadline, and now this? He glanced at the team, each one frozen in disbelief. "Grab your tools and go." Logan barked, jolting everyone into motion. The crew began filing out, dragging equipment and muttering curses under their breaths. Outside, under the harsh sunlight, the team regrouped. The event organizer, a flustered middle-aged man named Richard, approached them, wringing his hands. "This is a disaster," Richard stammered. "The event starts in less than 5 hours. We can't postpone." Logan clenched his jaw. "We'll make it happen," he said, though the weight of his promise felt like lead in his chest. Carmen nudged him with a smirk. "See, the world won't end. Just the event." Logan didn't smile. His mind was already spinning through contingencies. The gas leak wasn't just an inconvenience. It was the first crack in what felt like an impending avalanche. Yet, as the team huddled together, there was an unspoken resilience in the air. They were used to fighting against the odds, and this time wouldn't be any different. As the evacuation dragged on, Logan's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Evelyn. It was a cryptic text from an unknown number. "You're not ready for what's coming. Watch your back." Logan stared at the screen, his stomach twisting. The gas leak had been strange enough, but now this? He didn't have time for mysteries, not with an event on the line. Yet a sense of unease took root, gnawing at the edges of his focus. By the time the all-clear was given to return inside, Logan's mind was split between solving the immediate crises and deciphering the chilling message. Little did he know, the chaos was only beginning, and the cracks were about to widen into full-blown fissures. Next chapter. The plot thickens as the team uncovers unexpected sabotage, raising questions about trust, loyalty, and survival under pressure. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Spotlight. The team trudge back into the event hall, the air thick with unspoken tension. Despite the earlier evacuation, the atmosphere seemed even heavier now. The vibrant neon lights, which usually infuse the space with energy, flickered ominously, adding a surreal edge to their return. Logan clapped his hands sharply, snapping everyone into focus. "All right, people, no time to dwell. We've got 5 hours to pull this off," he announced, his voice cutting through the lingering unease. But his mind was still preoccupied with the mysterious text. Who could have sent it? And what did it mean? Carmen glanced at him as she reset her lighting console. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Don't tell me you're scared of a little gas leak." Logan forced a smile. Scared? Never. Annoyed? Definitely. Across the hall, Alex was already back at work, his hands moving deftly over the audio controls. He muttered under his breath as he wrestled with a stubborn feedback loop. "This gear is cursed, I swear," he grumbled, though he didn't really believe in curses, or so he told himself. Meanwhile, Max was on his knees, tools spread out around him, as he tinkered with the LED panels. Sweat dripped down his forehead despite the air conditioning. "I think I got it this time," he called out, his voice tinged with equal parts optimism and desperation. The team worked in near silence, each person absorbed in their task. The clock was ticking, and the weight of the deadline pressed down on them like an invisible hand. But the unease lingered, and it wasn't long before it found a voice. "I don't know about you guys, but that gas leak felt off," Carmen said, her tone unusually serious. She rarely broke her breezy demeanor, and the change was enough to make Logan pause. "What do you mean?" he asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Carmen shrugged, her eyes fixed on the lights above. "I don't know, just a feeling, like it wasn't an accident." Logan frowned. He wanted to dismiss her concerns, to focus on the task at hand, but the cryptic text in his pocket made it impossible. "Let's stick to facts," he said finally. "We got a job to do." But even as he said it, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The first sign of trouble came about an hour later. Carmen was on a ladder, adjusting a spotlight, when she heard a faint clicking sound. She froze, her eyes scanning the room, but nothing seemed out of place. Shrugging it off, she continued her work. Moments later, the spotlight flickered violently, then went out completely. "Great," she muttered. "Just what we need." Max looked up from his work, his face smudged with grease. "Need help?" "I got it," Carmen replied, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. As she climbed down, the clicking sound returned, louder this time. It was followed by a soft whooshing noise, like air escaping a valve. Carmen turned to Logan, her expression unreadable. "Please tell me you heard that." Logan nodded, his hand instinctively reaching for his phone. The mysterious text flashed through his mind again, its words now feeling like a warning. He glanced around the room, but there was no sign of anything unusual. Then, without warning, one of the LED panels Max had been working on sparked and went dark. Max let out a startled yelp, falling backward onto the floor. "What the hell?" he exclaimed, scrambling to his feet. Alex rushed over, his calm demeanor slipping for the first time. "Is everyone okay?" he asked, his voice tight. "We're fine," Logan replied, though he wasn't sure how true that was. He looked at the panel, its edges blackened from the spark, and felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just bad luck. Something or someone was interfering. As the team gathered around the damaged panel, the clicking sound returned, louder than ever. It echoed through the hall, bouncing off the walls like a sinister whisper. Logan's heart pounded as he turned toward the source of the noise. In the shadowy corner of the room, just beyond the reach of the lights, a figure stood motionless. It was too dark to make out any details, but the presence was unmistakable. Logan took a step forward, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "Who's there?" The figure didn't move. For a moment, the hall was eerily silent, the only sound the faint hum of the remaining LED panels. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure was gone, swallowed by the shadows. Logan turned back to the team, his face pale, but resolute. "We're not alone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The team exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of his words settling over them like a shroud. The tension in the room was palpable, but there was no time to dwell. The clock was still ticking, and the event wouldn't wait for them to solve the mystery. As they returned to their work, each person couldn't help but glance over their shoulder, half expecting the figure to reappear. The sense of unease had morphed into a full-blown sense of dread, but there was no turning back now. Next chapter. The team discovers a series of deliberate sabotages, forcing them to confront their suspicions and band together against an unseen threat. Chapter 3. Sabotage in the System. The hall seemed to grow colder as the hours passed, the earlier unease now a constant undercurrent beneath the frenetic pace. The team's movements became sharper, their conversations clipped, as if they collectively decided that focusing on the work was their only defense against the creeping dread. Logan was the first to notice something else was wrong. While triple-checking the equipment manifest, he found discrepancies. "Max, did you sign off on the video switcher cables?" he asked sharply, holding up the clipboard. Max looked up from his work on the LED panels, his brow furrowing. "Yeah, yesterday afternoon." "Why?" "They're not here," Logan said, his tone heavy with suspicion. He turned to Alex. "What about the spare transmitters?" Alex frowned. "They should be in the gear truck." "They're not," Logan replied. His voice dropped. "This isn't a mistake." Carmen, perched on the edge of the stage, with a mug of coffee that had long gone cold, raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting someone's messing with us? Like deliberately?" Logan hesitated, but the evidence was piling up. The missing equipment, the gas leak, the mysterious figure, it was all too much to ignore. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we need to be on high alert." As if on cue, a loud crash echoed through the hall. Everyone froze, their heads snapping toward the source of the noise. One of the scaffolds, previously secure, had collapsed, sending a tangled mess of cables and tools spilling onto the floor. Carmen let out a low whistle. "Okay, that's definitely not normal." Logan didn't respond. He was already moving, his eyes scanning the wreckage. The scaffold hadn't just fallen, it had been tampered with. The locking pins were missing, and the cables securing it had been deliberately frayed. His stomach churned. Who would do this? Max asked, his voice trembling. He was young, inexperienced, and this was quickly becoming too much for him to handle. "I don't know," Logan said, his jaw tightening. "But we're going to find out. Carmen, Alex, check the security footage. Max, help me inspect the rest of the equipment. We can't afford any more surprises." Carmen hopped off the stage, her usual sass replaced with a grim determination. "On it, boss." The control room was a claustrophobic space filled with monitors and tangled wires. Carmen and Alex sifted through hours of footage, their faces illuminated by the cold glow of the screens. At first, it seemed like a futile effort. The cameras had blind spots, and the recordings were grainy at best. Then they saw it, a figure hooded and swift, moving through the hall in the early hours of the morning. The footage didn't reveal much, just enough to confirm their suspicions. Someone was sabotaging them. Carmen leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed. "Well, there's your proof." Alex nodded, his face unreadable. "But who? And why?" Back on the main floor, Logan and Max discovered more evidence of tampering, severed cables, misaligned trusses, and a collection of tools that didn't belong to their crew. Logan's frustration mounted with each discovery, but he forced himself to stay calm. Losing his temper wouldn't help. "We have to keep going," he told Max, "no matter what." Max nodded, though his hands shook as he picked up a toolbox. "Yeah, no matter what." By the time Carmen and Alex returned with the footage, the team was running on fumes. Logan watched the grainy video in silence, his mind racing. The figure's presence raised more questions than answers. Was this a competitor trying to sabotage them? A disgruntled employee seeking revenge? Or something else entirely? "We need a plan," Logan said, finally. "We can't let this stop us." "But what if it gets worse?" Max asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Logan's eyes hardened. "Then we'll deal with it. Together." The words hung in the air, a fragile promise in the face of mounting uncertainty. The team nodded, their shared determination a flickering light in the darkness. They didn't know who or what they were up against, but they knew one thing: failure wasn't an option. As they returned to work, Logan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The mysterious text buzzed in his pocket again, a silent reminder of the unknown threat lurking in the shadows. And as the hours ticked by, the sense of unease grew, wrapping around the team like a suffocating fog. Next chapter. The team confronts their first major crisis, forcing them to improvise under pressure and revealing fractures in their unity. Chapter 4, Under Pressure. The clock ticked relentlessly, each passing second reminder of the shrinking window of time. The Grand Hall, once a monument to meticulous preparation, now felt like a minefield of uncertainty. Logan stood at the center of it all, trying to steady his breathing. The weight of the unknown was pressing down on him, but he couldn't let it show. His team needed strength, not doubt. "All right, listen up," he called, his voice echoing through the space. "We have 3 hours to turn this around. Carmen, focus on recalibrating the lighting. Alex, recheck the sound system and make sure there's no more tampering. Max and I will handle the LED panels and missing cables. No mistakes." "Copy that," Carmen replied, giving him a mock salute before jogging off to her console. Max nodded hesitantly. "Got it." The team dispersed, their movements swift but deliberate. Each person carried an unspoken resolve, a determination to prove that they could rise above the chaos. But the cracks were starting to show. As Logan and Max worked on reconnecting the LED panels, the younger tech's hands trembled. Logan noticed but didn't comment. He remembered what it was like to feel that weight for the first time. Instead, he kept his tone calm. "Max, pass me the splitter." Max fumbled with the toolbox, but eventually handed over the piece. Do you think whoever's doing this is still around?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Logan paused, glancing at the shadows stretching across the hall. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we can't let that stop us." Max nodded, though the fear in his eyes was still evident. Meanwhile, at the lighting console, Carmen's usually steady hands faltered as she adjusted the settings. The lights above flickered, their beams dancing erratically. "Come on, work with me here," she muttered under breath. She was so focused that she almost didn't notice the faint sound behind her, a soft scrape, like a shoe against the floor. Carmen spun around, her heart racing, but there was nothing there. Just the empty hall, its corners cloaked in shadow. "Get a grip, Carmen," she told herself, forcing a shaky laugh. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. At the sound booth, Alex was having troubles of his own. The speakers were operational, but the feedback persisted, a high-pitched whine that grated on his nerves. He adjusted the settings, his practiced hands moving with precision, but the problem remained. "Logan," Alex called out, his voice carrying across the room. "We might have to scrap the wireless mics. The interference is too much." Logan looked up from his work. "Not an option." "Figure it out, Alex. We can't have a silent presentation." Alex gritted his teeth, frustration boiling beneath his calm exterior. "I'll do my best." As the team pushed forward, the tension between them began to mount. Carmen snapped at Max for blocking her path. Alex muttered under his breath about the unrealistic expectations, and Logan's patience wore thinner by the minute. But then, in the midst of the chaos, a breakthrough. Max managed to reconnect the LED panels, and they flickered to life, casting a vibrant glow across the stage. Carmen's lights finally stabilized, their beams cutting through the dimness. And Alex, after a grueling hour of trial and error, resolved the feedback issues. For the first time all day, there was a glimmer of hope. Logan called the team together, his voice softer now. "Good work, everyone. We're not out of the woods yet, but this is progress. Keep it up." The team nodded, their spirits lifting slightly. But as they returned to their tasks, Logan's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "This is just the beginning. Be ready?" His jaw tightened as he read the words. The mystery was far from over, and the stakes were only getting higher. Next chapter. The team faces an unexpected disaster during the final hour, forcing them to make a critical choice that could make or break the event. Chapter 5. A fracture in the foundation. As the countdown clock loomed over their heads, the team pressed on with an urgency that bordered on frantic. The event hall began to take shape, a testament to their expertise and determination despite the obstacles. But the air was still heavy, not just with the pressure of the deadline, but with the unanswered questions that refused to fade. Carmen finished adjusting the final lighting cue, taking a step back to admire her work. "At least something's going right," she muttered, though her voice lacked conviction. She glanced at Logan, who was pacing near the stage, his phone clenched tightly in his hand. The cryptic messages had clearly shaken him, but he wasn't sharing his thoughts. Not yet, anyway. "Hey, fearless leader," Carmen called out, her tone attempting levity. "You're gonna wear a groove in the floor, if you keep that up." Logan stopped mid-step, forcing a thin smile. "Just thinking." "Yeah? About what?" Carmen asked, crossing her arms. "Because if it's about those creepy texts, you should probably clue us in." Logan hesitated, glancing at the rest of the team. Max was meticulously checking the LED connections, Alex was focused on final audio tests, and the tension between them all was palpable. They were holding it together, but only just. Before Logan could respond, a low hum filled the hall. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable, but it quickly grew into a bone-rattling vibration. The LED panels flickered, the lights dimmed, and the speakers emitted a piercing screech. "What now?" Alex shouted, his voice barely audible over the noise. He scrambled to his control board, flipping switches and twisting knobs in a desperate attempt to stop the chaos. The sound cut off as abruptly as it had started, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. The team exchanged uneasy glances, each one waiting for someone else to speak. "It's the power grid," Max said, finally, his voice shaky. "Something's messing with the circuits." "Not something," Carmen corrected. "Someone." Logan's jaw tightened. The pieces were falling into place, and none of them painted a good picture. The sabotage wasn't random. It was calculated, designed to disrupt them at every turn. And now, with less than 2 hours to go, it was working. "We need to split up," Logan said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Alex, Carmen, check the breakers. See if you can isolate the problem. Max and I will secure the rest of the equipment. No one works alone. Stay in pairs." Carmen raised an eyebrow. "You think the boogeyman's gonna jump out from behind a speaker?" Logan didn't answer, but the look in his eyes was enough. This wasn't a joke, not anymore. As the team moved to their assigned tasks, the sense of unease only deepened. The hall, once alive with their efforts, now felt like a hostile entity, each shadow a potential threat. Logan and Max worked in silence, their focus unyielding as they double-checked every connection and re-secured the gear. In the utility room, Carmen and Alex found the breaker panel, its surface scratched and dented. Alex examined it closely, his sharp eyes catching something unusual. "These aren't normal burn marks," he said, pointing to the edges of the panel. "It's like someone used a high-voltage tool to fry it." "Great," Carmen muttered. "So, we're not just dealing with a saboteur. We're dealing with a saboteur who knows exactly what they're doing." "Which means there's still a threat?" Alex added, his tone grim. Before they could say more, a loud crash echoed from the main hall. Carmen and Alex exchanged a glance before sprinting back, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. They arrived to find Logan and Max staring at a toppled truss, its metal frame bent and twisted. The team's collective exhaustion boiled over into frustration, fear, and anger. "This is insane," Max said, his voice cracking. "We're being set up to fail." "We won't," Logan said firmly, though the strain in his voice was clear. "We can't." Carmen approached him, her usual sarcasm replaced with genuine concern. "Logan, this isn't just bad luck. This is personal. Someone wants to see us crash and burn. And they're not going to. Logan snapped, his patience finally snapping. Now get back to work. All of you. The team returned to their tasks, but the cracks in their unity were widening. The strain was taking its toll, and the clock was ticking louder than ever. As Logan stood alone for a moment, his phone buzzed again. Another text, just 3 words. Tick, tock, tick. His hands trembled as he stared at the screen. The threat was escalating, and he was running out of time. Next chapter. The final hour brings a catastrophic failure, forcing the team to confront the saboteur head-on and make a last-ditch effort to save the event. Chapter 6, Unmasking the Shadows. The Grand Hall was no longer a workspace. It had turned into a battleground. The tension was electric, pulsing through every cable, every beam of light, every cautious glance shared between the team members. Time was no longer measured in minutes, it was measured in heartbeats. They were in the final stretch, and every second felt like a lifetime. Logan gathered the team in the center of the stage. His face was pale, his expression steely. "We're not just fighting the clock anymore," he began, his voice calm but edged with determination. "Whoever is behind this, they're trying to break us. But we're not going to let them win." Carmen crossed her arms, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "That's a great pep talk, Logan. But it doesn't exactly solve the problem." Alex spoke next, his tone practical. "We need to tighten security. Max and I can lock down the entrances and double-check the rest of the equipment. Carmen, you and Logan should stay here and keep an eye on things." Logan nodded. "Good, but stay alert. If you see anything at all, report back immediately." As Alex and Max moved to secure the hall, Logan and Carmen focused on stabilizing the systems. The LED panels were flickering again, and the lighting console had started to behave erratically. Carmen's frustration boiled over as she slammed her palm against the console. "This is ridiculous. It's like the whole system's haunted." Logan placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm but reassuring. "We'll figure it out. We always do." But even as he said the words, Logan's phone buzzed again. The unknown number had sent another message. "You're so close, yet so far. Time's almost up." Carmen noticed the flicker of fear in his eyes. "Logan, what's going on?" He hesitated, then handed her the phone. As she read the messages, her face darkened. This isn't just sabotage. This is personal." "I know," Logan admitted, "but I don't know who's behind it or why." Carmen handed the phone back, her jaw set. "Well, whoever they are, they've messed with the wrong team." Just as she spoke, a loud bang reverberated through the hall. Logan and Carmen spun around, their eyes darting to the source of the noise. One of the trusses near the back of the stage had collapsed, sending a shower of sparks into the air. The destruction was unlike anything they'd seen before, calculated, precise, devastating. "Alex, Max, report." Logan barked into his walkie-talkie. Static crackled in response, but there was no reply. "Carmen, stay here." Logan ordered, his voice sharp. "I'm going to find them." "Like hell you are," Carmen shot back. "I'm not letting you go out there alone." Logan didn't argue. The two of them moved cautiously through the hall, their senses on high alert. Every shadow seemed to shift, every sound amplified to an unbearable degree. They found Alex and Max near the utility room, their faces pale, but unharmed. "We locked the entrances," Alex reported, "but we found something disturbing." He held up a device, a small, nondescript box with blinking red lights. "It was hidden near the breaker panel. I think it's some kind of jammer." Max added, his voice shaking. "It's been messing with the electrical systems. Whoever planted it knew exactly what they were doing." Logan took the device, his mind racing. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a coordinated attack. And the messages on his phone weren't just threats, they were warnings. As the team regrouped, Logan made a decision. "We're not letting them win. Alex, disable the jammer. Carmen, secure the lighting and audio. Max, double-check the LED panels. I'll handle the rest." "And what about the saboteur?" Carmen asked, her tone sharp. Logan's eyes hardened. "We'll deal with them when the time comes." The team moved as one, their fear replaced with resolve. The event was in jeopardy, but they weren't going down without a fight. The clock was still ticking, but for the first time, they felt like they had a chance. But as Logan worked, another text came through, "You're too late." He didn't have time to process the message before the lights went out, plunging the hall into darkness. Next chapter. The climax unfolds as the Saboteur reveals themselves, forcing the team to confront the ultimate betrayal and make a daring last-minute save. Chapter 7, The Breaking Point. The oppressive darkness lingered for only a moment before the emergency lights clicked on, casting the hall in an eerie red glow. Shadows stretched and twisted along the walls, giving the already tense atmosphere an almost nightmarish quality. The team huddled near the stage, their faces illuminated by the faint light, each one etched with a mixture of determination and fear. "What just happened?" Carmen asked, her voice breaking the silence. "The main power's out," Alex replied, his tone grim. "That wasn't an accident." Logan took a deep breath, his mind racing. The sabotage had escalated to a full-scale attack, and whoever was behind it was closing in. The cryptic text messages replayed in his head like a broken record. "You're too late." He clenched his fists, refusing to give in to the panic, threatening to overtake him. "We need to stay focused," Logan said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "Alex, can you get the backup generator running?" Alex nodded. "I'll need Max to help me. It's a two-person job." "Go," Logan ordered. "Carmen and I will hold the fort here." As Alex and Max disappeared into the shadows, Carmen turned to Logan. "And what exactly are we supposed to do if the Saboteur decides to show up again? Wave a wrench at them?" Logan managed a wry smile. "Something like that." The two of them worked quickly to stabilize the remaining systems. The LED panels flickered weakly, struggling to stay powered, while the audio system let out intermittent pops of static. It was a delicate balance, and one wrong move could send everything into chaos. But then, out of the corner of his eye, Logan saw movement. A figure slipped silently between the rows of equipment, their presence barely more than a shadow. He froze, his heart pounding. "Carmen," he whispered, "we're not alone." She followed his gaze, her muscles tensing. "Do we confront them or wait?" Before Logan could answer, the figure stepped into the light. They were dressed in dark clothing, a hood obscuring their face, but their stance exuded confidence. They didn't run. Instead, they stood there watching, as if daring the team to make a move. Logan stepped forward, his voice firm. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure didn't respond. Instead, they raised their hand, revealing a small device, one that looked unsettlingly similar to the jammer Alex and Max had discovered. They pressed a button, and the LED panels flickered violently before going dark once more. Carmen let out a string of colorful curses. "Logan, we need to do something. Now." Before Logan could act, the figure turned and sprinted toward the exit. Without thinking, he gave chase, his footsteps echoing loudly in the cavernous hall. Carmen hesitated for a split second before following, her adrenaline propelling her forward. The chase was short but intense. The figure was fast, weaving through the maze of equipment with practiced ease. But Logan was fueled by something stronger, the need to protect his team and salvage the event. He lunged forward, grabbing the back of the figure's hoodie and pulling them to the ground. Carmen caught up seconds later, her breath ragged. "Nice tackle," she managed, her eyes narrowing as she reached for the figure's hood. "Let's see who we're dealing with." She pulled the hood back to reveal a face that sent a jolt of shock through Logan's system. It was Richard, the event organizer. His expression was a mixture of defiance and fear, his eyes darting between Logan and Carmen. "Richard?" Logan asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "You've been sabotaging us? Why?" Richard glared at him, his lips curling into a sneer. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," Logan shot back, his tone sharper than he intended. Richard hesitated, then spat out his explanation. "Your company undercut us. You stole clients that should have been ours. This event was supposed to be our chance to shine, but instead, you're here, making us look like amateurs. I couldn't let that happen. Logan stared at him, his mind reeling. He dealt with difficult clients and competitors before, but this level of sabotage was unprecedented. You risked ruining this entire event because of a grudge? Do you have any idea what you've done? Richard didn't reply. His silence was answer enough. Before Logan could say more, Carmen stepped forward, her voice low and icy. We don't have time for this. The generator's not running, and the clock is ticking. What's the plan, Logan? Logan looked down at Richard, then back at Carmen. Tie him up and call security. We'll deal with him later. As Carmen handled Richard, Logan radioed Alex and Max. We've got the saboteur. Focus on the generator. We need power back now. We're almost there, Alex replied. Give us 5 minutes. Make it 3, Logan said, his voice firm. The team was working against impossible odds, but Logan refused to give up. The event might have been teetering on the edge of disaster, but they weren't out of the game yet. Not if he had anything to say about it. Next chapter. The climactic finale unfolds as the team races to restore power and pull off a miracle, proving that even in the face of betrayal, unity and determination can overcome any obstacle. Chapter 8. Lights in the Darkness. The emergency lights flickered ominously as the red glow seemed to pulse with the tension gripping the hall. Every second felt heavier than the last as Logan stood in the center of the chaos. His team was scattered, each person giving everything they had to salvage the event. Despite the monumental betrayal and relentless setbacks, they pushed forward, united by sheer determination. In the generator room, Alex and Max were working with unparalleled urgency. Sweat dripped from their foreheads as they wrestled with cables and switches, their hands moving in perfect synchronization. The hum of the backup generator began to intensify, signaling that they were making progress. Almost there, Alex muttered, his voice steady despite the pressure. Just keep that panel steady, Max. Max nodded, his grip tightening on the panel as Alex made the final adjustments. A moment later, the generator roared to life, sending a surge of power through the hall. The lights flickered, then stabilized, bathing the space in a warm glow. We did it! Max exclaimed, a triumphant grin breaking through his exhaustion. Alex allowed himself a small smile. Let's hope it holds. Meanwhile, on the main floor, Carmen was finalizing the lighting and audio systems. The familiar hum of the equipment returning to life filled her with renewed energy. She glanced at Logan, who was directing the crew with laser focus, his phone still clutched tightly in his hand. We're back online. Carmen called out, her voice echoing through the hall. Time to make some magic happen. Logan gave her a nod, his lips curving into a faint smile. Good work, Carmen. Let's finish this. As the team worked tirelessly to bring the hall back to its former glory, the event's first guests began to arrive. The sharp clack of heels on polished floors and the low murmur of conversations filled the air, mingling with the hum of the equipment. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. What had been a scene of chaos mere hours ago was now a polished professional event space. Logan stepped back to admire the result, a sense of pride welling up within him. Against all odds, they had pulled it off. The LED panels glowed vibrantly, the spotlights cast perfect beams of light, and the audio system hummed with clarity. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. As the CEO of the company, Evelyn Martin, arrived to survey the scene, her sharp gaze landed on Logan. She approached him, her heels clicking with each step, and offered a rare smile. You did it, she said simply. Logan nodded, his exhaustion evident but overshadowed by relief. We had a few bumps along the way, but the team came through. Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. I heard about the sabotage. You need to file a full report, but for now, well done. Logan watched as she moved on, his attention shifting back to his team. Carmen leaned against the lighting console, her arms crossed and a satisfied smirk on her face. Alex and Max stood near the generator room entrance, their tired expressions softening as they exchanged a few words. For the first time that day, Logan allowed himself to relax. He joined his team, raising a hand in a silent gesture of thanks and acknowledgement. They had faced sabotage, betrayal, and overwhelming odds, but they had come out stronger. And then, as if to mark the end of their ordeal, the mysterious phone buzzed one last time. Logan hesitated before looking at the screen. The final message from the unknown number read, "Game over. For now." Logan exhaled deeply and slid the phone into his pocket. The threat might not have been fully vanquished, but at least for tonight, they had won. The event proceeded without a hitch, the guests none the wiser to the chaos that had unfolded behind the scenes. As the final applause echoed through the hall, and the lights dimmed for the last time, the team gathered together, their exhaustion giving way to quiet laughter and shared relief. They didn't just survive the day, they conquered it. And as they stood there, basking in the glow of their hard-earned victory, they realized something important. They weren't just colleagues, they were a family.